We'll begin with a look at Parliament Hill ahead of an expected federal budget vote tomorrow. The Liberals are just a couple of seats shy of a majority government, meaning they will need some support from opposition parties to survive the confidence vote or face an election. Let's bring in CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair. Tom, thanks for being here.
Good to be with you, Renee.
So let's start with the New Democrats. That party could hold all of the power here. Do you see a situation where they support the budget or vote against it, or perhaps will they abstain?
I think they're going to have to finesse it, because if all 7 of them came in and voted against the budget, it could defeat it. It's a confidence motion, and that would throw us into an election. I can't for the life of me imagine any scenario in which the current NDP would want to have an election now. They're broke. They don't have a new leader yet. That process is still ongoing. And there's actually, but even though there's only 7 of them, there's quite a big split amongst them on certain key issues. I can't see them standing up and voting for this budget that goes after the civil service. Tens of thousands of jobs would be lost. We can debate whether or not that's a good idea. But the very fact of the matter is the NDP's always had strong support within those public service unions, and I can't see them voting for that budget on that issue alone. So beyond that, it's very, very close, of course, because we had Chris D'Entremont crossing the floor. That helped Mr. Carney's fortunes quite a bit. It looks like Matt Généreux is not going to be around for the vote. Elizabeth May had planned to go to the COP30 in Belém, Brazil, but she wrote to her followers that she stayed, much to her disappointment, she stayed in Canada because she wanted to negotiate and to vote. So that's interesting. From day one, Renee, Elizabeth May has been saying, look, there are things in here that are unacceptable in terms of the environment, but I want to talk about them with the government. Maybe we can get some of this stuff changed. For example, the canceling of the 2 billion tree planting program, which is madness. Maybe she'll have been able to get some of that back on. The talk about removing emissions targets for oil and gas production. Maybe she could get something moving on that. Who knows? So she's playing a very important role, because even though she's the only member of the Green Party in Parliament, she knows that she could throw one vote one way or the other could make a considerable difference. Can I make a prediction that might surprise you? Keep an eye on the Bloc Québécois, because as the vote rolls out, of course, you're going to have the official opposition vote, and you're going to have the other parties. If the Bloc senses that there is even the slightest possibility of the budget being defeated, I think that we might see the disappearance of several Bloc members at the last minute. They don't want an election. They don't have any money in the bank. They're not ready for an election yet. They think that they might be able to do better than they did last time, because Carney did steal a bunch of Bloc seats in the last election. But I can't see them going after this right now, because I don't think that the public in Quebec would forgive them for pushing us into an election at Christmas time. So I think that they might actually pull a bit of a fast one, because if there is any real chance of this thing being defeated, the Bloc will mysteriously see several of its members disappear. I can't see a single Conservative not voting against the budget, but I don't think that the Bloc will all be there necessarily.
Interesting. You've been in positions like this before.
Yeah.
What do you think was taking place behind closed doors this weekend among all of the parties?
Not much, but there is an informal way of getting information out, because it'll be a senior staffer talking to a senior staffer, and they've been in the room when the discussions were taking place, and they have every interest in keeping the other ones informed of what's going on. The real wild card right now is the NDP. When the issue of Don Davies becoming the interim leader arose, there were 3 members of that caucus, so 3 out of 7, almost an even split, or as even as can get with 7, they were very unhappy with the way the party treated them, and they thought they had been excluded, and they took the trouble of pointing out that they were 3 racialized women, and that, for the NDP to have that thrown at them, was surprising, and I think that they had a point, and it hasn't healed. And on other issues, things like that keep coming up right now. So I do think that, Renee, the NDP is a bit of a wild card, because several of them are very, very strong-willed, and they have the safest, if there's such a thing in this day and age, they have the safest NDP seats. So could they decide to push very hard on this thing? That remains to be seen. The safest play for the NDP, from my point of view, send in leader Don Davies to vote against the budget. It's one person, and that's the end of it. If they all decide to go their own different ways, keep an eye on them. It could change very rapidly. But again, I doubt that the Bloc will allow that to happen. We don't talk about the Bloc that much. We don't think about them, with good reason. They don't really play a role nationally. But on a vote like this, they could play a deciding role by keeping several of their members out.
The margins are so close here, Tom. What will you be looking out for tomorrow?
I want to find out if Elizabeth May was able to negotiate something, because as we said at the outset, her vote, going for or against, really counts this time around. So I'm going to keep an eye on her, and I'm going to try to see if there's some indication from Don Davies as to how his members are going to vote. But I'm not even sure he's in a position to say how they're going to vote, because if they caucus on it and they come up with a decision, or they think they do, I don't think he's got much authority to push for a decision. So we'll see whether or not that split that we saw over his leadership, and it was the party who appointed him as leader and not the caucus. We'll see whether that continues to play out.
Should be very interesting. Nice to see you on this Sunday, Tom. Thanks for this.
All the best, Renee.
You too. That's CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader, Tom Mulcair.